Welcome
to Even Odds. I'm Carly.
I'm Matt.
And this is
Warhammer Wednesday.
So we're here today to talk about
Command points, tactics, and specialists. So if you watched our previous sort of learn to play video about the basics of the game, maybe you've played a game or two, maybe you watched our battle report of sort of a basic game. So now we're going to start, we're starting to take a dive into the more complicated parts of the game.
There's a lot of things to delve into.
Yes, we're taking it step by step. So hopefully today we're going to go over the rules for command points, tactics, specialists, that stuff. Hopefully demystify it for you a bit and help you understand what's going on. Okay? So
far we went through the 6 phases of each round.
Yep.
Okay. And then we played a game and it kind of gave, a good back and forth. But one thing we didn't use, that if you, have your data cards and you saw, okay, well, we went with what are the stats for your basic dude, what's your stats for the weapon that they're carrying, and then we did the abilities, that each of our 2 armies has, but 4 out of your 10 cards has these specialisms on there.
Yes.
Okay.
And we didn't use that.
We didn't use that because that has to do with certain tactics that you can add in to make the game more
variable, maybe complex. Sure,
I was looking for a different word.
Okay.
Flowery. No.
Flowery.
No. That's not
to make your game more flowery, we just sprinkle the lilacs
there's
and
like a very obvious word. But anyway,
more
rounded
tactical
out. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, so in addition to tactics that go along with specialisms that certain of you guys can have, there are also, as I understand, here the tactics that you can use for the basic game and then also for your individual army as a whole. So
yes.
Sort of 3 different ways that you can add in these extra special abilities that will enhance.
There we go. There we go.
Enhance your game.
Sure. So let's start at the most base level of it, which is what everybody has access to. Okay, so like our last sort of learning the basics video, we really encourage you to grab your rule book and follow along. It's going to make it a lot easier. Okay.
So here's the command points
page 64. So if you start on page 64, command points and tactics, you're going to see a big block of text, and then on the right you're going to see 6 boxes. Okay, these are the 6 universal tactics that everybody has access to. Now you'll notice also on the table in front of us we have some cards laid out. Our 6 tactics that are for everyone are right here. If you got the Kill Team starter set like we did, you're going to find these in a big pack of tactics cards with a lot of tactics, okay?
So these are these, but you
but
can
in
have
card
them
form,
easy access while you're playing the
you're
game.
You're going to
out
want
on
these.
The table.
Yeah, you're going to want these. It makes it a lot easier.
So there are going to be also some cards that you're just going to put off
set
to the
aside.
Side. So you just want to grab out these 6
just grab these
to
6
start with.
to start.
Okay.
So to use a tactic, you need to spend a resource called command points. Now everybody that's playing what's called a battle forged army gets access to command points.
So what does that mean? What do you mean?
So a battle forged army,
playing a battle forged army, is that just a term for any army that you're
yes,
creating?
it's a super fancy way to just say, are you playing Kill Team?
Okay.
Then you get,
Okay. All right.
Okay, because,
Well, because if you go, if you are playing, then it implies there's an alternative.
that you could. Correct.
All right.
Okay.
There's not.
So, earlier in the book, it briefly touches on what it calls 3 ways to play.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
The 3 ways to play
Okay.
are narrative.
Okay.
Okay, and that's where your goal is to like tell a story.
Okay.
Maybe you're not too concerned about balance, for example. You know, and you're just there. You're just trying. You're using the game and the models to tell a story.
Okay.
Then there's matched play, which is the easiest way to learn, and it's what everybody should learn.
Okay.
Is matched play because it's applicable to everything. That's just like if you're like we're playing the game, we're playing a certain setup. You're playing matched play. Then there's open play.
Okay.
Okay, and open play is I like this model. I like that model. They maybe don't come from the same army. I don't care. I'm playing them. That's open play. Is the wild, wild west of anything goes. You make up your own rules. You do whatever you want. That sort of stuff.
Okay.
So, for example, Battleforged means that everybody shares a keyword. So, Adeptus Mechanicus would be the keyword, or Gene Stealer cults would be the keyword.
So you don't rack up command points if you're doing like open play?
Correct.
Oh.
So, for example, if I were to say, I want to play with my army, my kill team is going to be an orc and a space marine and a tyrannid. That's not Battleforged.
So you don't even get to use basic tactics then?
Correct.
Oh, interesting. So, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But
that's kind of interesting. And then for same with narrative play?
Narrative play, well, it depends on how you're building your army.
Okay.
But
if it's so Battleforged
means you're just using all the same army.
Okay, interesting.
It's a really fancy way to say.
And this is the case. Is there like an open play version like 40k and Sigmar and all the other ones? Okay, so same thing.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's basic. It's a fancy way to say, are you playing a cohesive army?
Okay.
Which, if you're playing the starter set, you are. If you're playing a set from any of the various other starter sets they sell, you're playing a Battleforged army. Okay. Okay. So if you're playing Battleforged, you get a command
points.
Yep. Everybody's. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say round for round, right?
Right. So everybody starts with 1 command point, and then at the start of a round, everyone generates 1 command point. Okay? And that's every round. So
the beginning of the game you have 2.
You have 1, and then at the start of round 1, you generate another 1.
So you have 2.
So at the start of round 1, you'll have 2, yes.
Which is the start of the game, right?
Well, there's deployment.
Oh, that's before round 1?
That's before round 1, yeah.
Okay.
So which is important to note because now not for Adeptus Mechanicus or Gene Stealers, but perhaps some other army might have a tactic that can be used during deployment. Okay. So that's why it's important to make that distinction.
Okay, so the 6 primary tactics. So we were kind of talking about a little bit. I was like, okay, so do these relate to the phases and the rounds? And
roughly.
Not exactly. So
it's not a one-to-one.
There's not one that goes for initiative phase, one that goes for movement phase, but so initiative phase. There is one of the 6 main ones here. No. I thought you said it does.
No, it's not. I thought it was, but then when I read it, I said it wasn't.
Okay, so none of the 6 main ones go for initiative.
Nothing affects the initiative.
So you've got the other 5. Okay, so the second one being movement.
Yep.
So there's one general one out of the 6 that kind of goes across the board with all of the remaining 5 phases, and that one is the ability to re-roll something, right?
Yep.
And it can be re-rolling anything.
Yep. An advance roll, a charge roll, a psychic test, a deny the witch test, hit roll, wound roll, saving throw, injury roll, nerve test. Okay. So it's just basically a catch-all. The distinction, though, to be made is that in the main rules here, if you go over to page 20, the battle round, and it says re-rolls, there's a box bottom left, it says re-rolls, It says some rules allow you to re-roll a dice roll. I'm not going to read it one for one, blah, 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 blah. But it goes, if a rule allows you to re-roll a result that was made by adding several dice together, 2d6, 3d6, unless otherwise stated, you must roll all of those dice again. Okay, so it's important to note with tactical re-roll.
Well, and it says too, you can't re-roll.
You can't re-roll a re-roll. Once you've re-rolled something...
You can never re-roll a dice more than once.
Right, you can't re-roll a re-roll.
Okay, so you can't go, oh, that was one command point. Oh, wait, I want another re-roll.
Right.
Okay.
You can't do that.
You can do it once, but it's all of it. So you can't go, oh, I have to roll 2 dice for this one. I got a 6 on that one, so I don't want to re-roll that one.
Right, you cannot do that.
You have to re-roll them both.
Yes, but that's when the die totals are adding together. So, for example, on a charge move, right? So you make a charge, and you're like, oh, I failed the charge, but I got a 6 and a 1. You don't get to pick the 1 and re-roll it. You have to pick both of them up and re-roll if you're using the tactical re-roll tactic.
So then the other 5 kind of basically...
They kind of correlate to the other phases of the game. From shooting onward.
5, right? So,
from shooting onward.
There isn't one specifically for movement?
Well, there is one for movement, but not for psychics. That's why I said shooting onward.
So movement.
Yep.
Not psychic.
Right.
Shooting.
Fighting.
Morale. And then morale.
Then the last one, gritted teeth, applies to the shooting and fight phase. Okay. Shooting or fight phase.
So,
Okay, so...
So, you want to think of these tactics as corresponding to... as you get more familiar and comfortable with going through those phases of the game, you're going to kind of realize, this would be really beneficial if this guy could be able to shoot first or punch first or whatever, because otherwise he's going to die.
Right. For example, if you're playing and it's round 3 and you've lost the initiative roll every round and you're like, by God, I would just like to shoot first one time here. Well, you might use decisive shot, and you might shoot first. Or if you're like, I absolutely need this charge to go off, and I need it to happen before anything else. You might use decisive move, right? Tactical reroll is going to be the bread and butter. That's what I've found in many a game at this point. Is that tactical reroll? Everybody uses it. Okay. Now
just use your book for this.
Use the book. Use the cards.
Those we're not going to go through each one.
Yeah, a couple things.
Just very briefly, sure. I just wanted to say, because we were discussing when we were deciding what to do. Since in that playthrough game that we last did, we kind of breezed through the types of guns and stuff. So read about your guns.
Yes. Yeah. By the way, if there's any if you're watching these videos and there's any questions you have, hit us up in the comments. We'll answer your questions.
But a lot of it is like
some of it you just need to read it.
You would go and read, but read about the shooting phase, because I realized we didn't really explain any of that, and we kind of just went into it with the gameplay. But so anyway,
couple things about tactics. These 6 are universal. It means everybody has access to them. Okay, so both you and your opponent have the ability to re-roll. Both you and your opponent have the ability to automatically pass a nerve check with insane bravery, that sort of stuff. It's important to keep that in mind. Also, it's important to keep in mind that a tactic can only be used once per phase. Now, for certain things, that's sort of self-evident, like decisive move it's kind of self-evident because it's take a model and move it before anyone else. It clarifies that if both people want to use it, then you roll off and whoever wins gets to move first. But
you can't rack up 5 command points and then move 5 of your models first with
correct.
that. Okay.
Correct.
Right.
So, but it's really important to note that one, because as you go through the tactics, you might go like, man, I would just love to just burn this. I'm going to save up, but then I'm just going to burn this same one over and over and over. Can't do it. The one that's really important to note on that is actually tactical reroll. because you might be in the shooting phase and you're like, okay, I'm going to shoot this model.
Yeah.
No, I'm just going to re-roll one of his die. Okay, whatever. And then you might go to the next model. I'm going to shoot him. I'll just re-roll one of his shots. Can't do it. You use the re-roll. That's your re-roll for that phase.
Okay.
Now, so you
can do
might
it again
shoot
the next
and
phase,
use
yeah.
tactical re-roll. Then you might get into the fight phase and use tactical re-roll again.
Okay.
That's a-okay.
So
Different
it's
phases.
per phase, not per round. Okay.
Right, not per round.
Okay.
That being said, command points are only generated at the top of the round. So those of you who are savvy so far, at the start of the game you get one, and each battle round you generate one. So
Right.
at the top of battle round 1 you'll have 2. Top of battle, if you haven't, and they do roll over. So if you haven't spent them, top of round 2,
do roll
you'll have 3.
And there is another way also to
Right,
gain
but we'll get on
extra.
that. We'll
We're
get on
getting
that in a
to
minute.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but let's
Now,
stick on
they
this for a
are
minute. So you only have 2 at the start of the game. You'll notice that some of the tactics they cost 2 command points. So you have to understand,
Alright, so they have
you're
different
not
costs too, yeah.
you're not throwing these around left and right. These are sort of
Right,
curated.
you have to keep, like,
you use them at the
important-
right
yeah.
time
And,
to get an
well,
effect.
And the same pool of command points are used to purchase essentially any tactic, whether they're general game specific or army specific or
Right.
specialist specific. It's all coming out of your same pool of command points.
But they do roll over, so if you don't use them,
Right.
you will keep them over the next round.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so let's talk about army-specific stratagems. Okay, each army has their own pool of stratagems. So everyone gets the 6 universal stratagems.
Right.
Then, on top of that, for example, the AdMech here in the book have access to 4 unique stratagems to the AdMech.
Okay, and so the kill team box, as well as I would guess any of the other starter sets that are available for any of the other armies are going to come with the little pack.
Correct.
And I think you might be able to even buy the tactics.
You can buy the
cards
generic
for
ones, yeah.
just like on their own, maybe, for whatever army you have. And so these that are in the book would also be available in these cards. And so AdMech is not the best example, I think, because as we were going through these, all 4 of these, which are all that you have available, are all applicable to an out-of-the-box out of the starter set box that we've been doing game, whereas your Gene Stealer ones
They're
that
not
come out of
all
the box
applicable.
are not all applicable.
Yes.
So, and it's not like immediately evident.
Right.
You kind of have to, and actually, so there are 6 Gene Stealer tactics that you have available to you, and only 2 of them, right?
Yeah.
You found only 2
Yeah,
of
roughly.
them. Do you really use in a
With the starter set
out of
only.
the box,
Yeah.
cards like we've been teaching here to do to start.
Yeah.
So, because otherwise it requires you have specific weapons.
Right,
that
which
you
the
need to,
neophyte
like-
hybrids here don't have access
that
to.
you would have to add in.
Right,
at-
or for
later
example,
on.
there's one that is applicable only to aberrants, which is a unit for the Gene Stealers, but that doesn't come in the starter
in the
set.
starter set. Okay.
Then there's another one, Inhuman Reflexes. That's what it is. Inhuman Reflexes. It says, use this tactic when a model from your kill team fails a falling test. A falling test is only used in the advanced rule set, which is also in the book here. But we suggest you don't use the advanced rules till you're more comfortable with the base game. Till maybe, I would say probably till you've got maybe like 5 or 6 games under your belt of not using the advanced rule set.
Okay.
Then you might go into that.
So that one in particular says something about the
Falling test.
falling
Inhuman
test
Reflexes.
is part of
fail.
advanced rules,
Yep.
and then the other 3 that you're not using have to do with either weapons or models that you wouldn't currently have
So-
from this starter set.
Right.
So for then the other armies, if you are getting into one of the other armies and you're starting to think about that, or maybe you've already bought a box of something, like just find your appropriate army, and then those boxes should be in the front of any of them, right?
Yep.
So just a basic, like, okay, so here's Tau. Your first page is like your lore and your background. Then you have this. You said is just
like story
flavor,
generation
right?
stuff. Yeah,
so it's flavor to create your army and help you to
name generation,
identify them
that sort of
as,
stuff.
Really personalities.
Right.
And then your next one is going to be, just your
sort of army special
off
rules,
the top special rules,
and then tactics,
and then that little chart there of your tactics.
Yeah.
And then
you have your unit entries,
and then your unit information, and then all of your breakdown of what your different weapons and
costs are,
war gear, and
which
and
we're
stuff.
gonna get on all that stuff. But I think it's
aside,
actually it's easier to understand this stuff first, and then move into army building at a real comprehensive army building in a later stage, which we're gonna get on all that stuff.
So just find your army specific ones, okay?
Yep.
And then finally, the third way of getting tactics
is specialisms.
Specialisms.
Now, specialisms deserve a discussion all their own before we hit on their tactics. But before we hit on their tactics, just suffice to say that for every specialist you have, there is a specialist specific tactic. Okay? And before we go into specialisms, just a thing. So we're just teaching all of this in one lump sum. But you might find that you would like to implement the specialism buffs, but not the tactics first. Or you might want to do tactics, but not specialist first. Whatever you feel comfortable with, go through it. Let us know.
The point is don't get overwhelmed.
Don't get overwhelmed, yeah.
So if you want to just start with adding in the general tactics for the entire overall game,
the 6 universal
start with
ones.
the 6 universal ones,
and
then
maybe go
add
from there.
in your army-specific tactics, then do specialisms. Or go by how we were just doing the cards and go, I'm going to skip army-specific and game-specific tactics, and I'm just going to do the specialisms. So whatever appeals to you, this is then kind of a general overview then of how you would do that.
Right.
And, it might appeal more to you to do the specialisms first because they're on the cards.
Right.
So it might help you kind of identify that in your guys as you're playing them.
Yeah, and let us know in the comments. Hey, what's working for you?
Yeah.
So let's talk specialists.
Okay.
Using our kill team starter set as our examples, right? That's what we're doing. That's what you can expect to see here when you're with us at even odds. Every kill team must have a leader, which is a type of specialist, and up to 3 specialists. Okay? Now,
so 4 total for your entire kill team.
One of which is always the leader.
And that's regardless of if you mix up your individual models in the future.
You'll always have a leader.
Across the board, you're always going to have always have a leader, and then up to 3.
Up to 3 specialists.
10 altogether, I think, including the leader.
11 with the leader.
10 in addition to the leader. I feel like I thought.
Oh no! Sorry, it is 10. There it is. There's the other text.
Anyway,
there it is. So so 10. 10.
Right. So
10
then,
with the
and
leader.
then 9 other ones that you can choose from. Okay.
So
So
you'll
again,
notice,
going by the cards, they have already kind of calculate or determined one for you to go with.
Right. So let's use the leader as the example, which is nice because it sort of encompasses everything we're talking about. Okay. So you'll see on the card, there's a box for specialism. Find your leader, Yorl Kraus or Dorox 0.4343. Okay. Now,
named Dora.
If you go in your book, you flip over to page 66. That's where the stuff about specialists is. And if you flip one page over to 68, 8, that's where leader specialist starts, okay?
Right. So just
Now,
they're just
this is
all
kind of, if you look at it,
in a
it's
row.
kind of a lot of information here on page 66 and 67. All right, and then again, like I said, if you go over here to leader, we'll look at leader. You'll see level 1 leader tactic, level 2 leader tactic, level 3 leader tactic. Okay, level 2 and 3. This applies to all the specialists. Levels 2 and 3 are only for a campaign play. Okay, so a campaign play is where you and a group of friends are playing a set of games that are all interconnected, and your specialists and kill teams are gaining experience points. It's kind of like an RPG. For learning the game, ignore level 2 and 3. So same thing when you open up your big book of, or I'm sorry, big pack of tactics cards. These are all the level 2 and 3 tactics. You can just set those aside for a good amount of time until you're getting into the campaign play, or if you and a friend agree that you want to start playing with higher level specialists. But for learning, just set these aside. So same thing in the book. You see level 2, level 3. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Down underneath, you'll see this sort of like flow chart. Same thing. Level 2 and level 3 and level 4 are for campaign play. You're only going to be concerned about level 1. That's what you're learning. Just level 1 for now.
So yeah.
So each specialist
So each specialist
gets
has
a
specific tactic.
first, having the specialist on your team unlocks a specific tactic. Okay, so we've pulled out our 10 level 1 tactics. Okay, and again, remember, tactics have a command point cost. Okay, and you only have so many command points, so it's not like you're throwing these around left and right like candy. And this is where the cards come into play really nicely, because you don't have to be flipping through the book to be looking at these. You can just keep your cards kind of maybe laid out on the table next to the board in easy view for you to like reference.
In the book as like a reference, but the cards are handy when you're playing.
Right.
Now, actually, okay, so it is a little bit more complex though with using the specialist, because it's not just a single tactic and that's it.
Right.
You also get something else.
Yes.
Right?
Each specialist has a bonus that is either
embedded into it.
Yeah, they just have it. That's the whole reason they're a specialist. Otherwise, they'd just be a normal dude. So this bonus is either passive, in that it's just there all the time, or it's activated in that there's some sort of clause that is needed for it to happen.
Okay.
So using the leader as our example.
Yeah. And this is what we were. So this goes back to talking about there's additional ways to get additional command points. The leader is, as long as your leader continues to be on the battlefield and not shaken, then you gain an additional command point at the beginning of each battle round.
Right. So
it adds an extra layer of complexity to now it's like, well,
it's
you
important
don't want
to keep your leader
you don't
alive.
want you gotta keep your lever.
Keep your lever.
Keep your lever. keep your lever. You keep her. Oh my God. All right. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So, and then So then that's an addition to then what your tactic would be that your leader has. And I don't think we're not going to read
we're not going to go over. So you can follow along in your book. Like I said, you'll look. For example, the Kill Team starter set here. I have a heavy specialist, so I'd flip to heavy and I'd look at what his level 1 bonus is, and then he just has that. Now, just to touch on the leader again, right? So you start the game with 1 command point. You, at the beginning of each battle round, you generate 1, and if your leader is on the board and not shaken, you'll get an additional 1. Meaning that if you're playing Kill Team, minimum you're going to start with 3 command points each game. At Battle Round 1, you'll start with 3. Battle Round 2, you'll generate 2 more, assuming that your leader is alive and not shaken. So there you go.
Okay, so you start with one general one, you get 2 at the beginning after deployment and all that. So you got 3, and then at the beginning of the next round, assuming you still have your leader, you get 2 more, so you have 5 if you haven't
so
used
on
them.
and so on.
Yeah. So and
you're probably going to use
the
them,
other
though.
ones are more variable because you could decide to or not to have your other specialists, but everybody's going to have a leader, right?
Right.
Okay.
Everyone must have a leader.
Okay.
Must have a
All
leader.
right, cool.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that's basically it. Okay.
Yeah.
And like we said, maybe you want to just implement the six general tactics, and then just stick with the one command point per round thing, and just start there. And then the next game, maybe you'll add in specialisms.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and then maybe after that you'll add in the army specific tactics.
Okay.
Right.
One
and so
other
you'll
thing,
always
that
sort
I
of,
wanna
you know,
touch on here though, with that is like similarly to what I said about, we kind of glossed over the shooting phase stuff and the variable abilities the different weapons have, and we showed that in our battle report but didn't go over it like this. Similarly, we didn't really completely go through how we built these guys either, with like when you're putting your guys together you can choose to put different weapons because you might eventually want to change them or have different things going, right? So we might still do.
Oh yeah, we're absolutely
going to
do
still
that.
do
Yeah.
something
Oh yeah.
with that.
But just
But
that
yeah,
is.
But it's a good idea to like get to know your guys, you know, and
Yeah.
to design them when you're putting them together. To that, like, see, like as an aside, like I used a couple of the other weapons that aren't actually on this card. That just for me, I was like, okay, well, this is gonna help me identify this guy a little bit better on the board. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like, so you really want to get to know your guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's
so
important. It's important for,
that
like we
was
said.
just my point. Yeah.
Yeah. It's important for when you start putting flesh wounds on guys, knowing who is who. It's also important for like this when you're like, okay, well, that's my specialist that has this ability. You and your opponent are going to want to know who it is
Right.
that has what.
Right, like in the AdMech, you can use the advanced data tether or the omni specs, and there's little pieces that you can have your guy have, which they're not on these starter cards, but Capic here is a communications specialist, and so I put the data tether on him because it looks like a little walkie-talkie, so that would like signal to me that he would be like my communications specialist.
Right.
So, you know, just that's, you know, just to like start thinking that way of like really kind of figuring out how to start identifying your specialisms with your certain guys, and, you know, who you know, get to know your dudes.
Yes. And there's a lot of ways to do that. If, you know, you do it with building, you can, you know, write in marker on their base, you know, on the rim of the base. You can be
That's,
like,
I guess,
this,
a
you
good
know.
point. We didn't do that, but I guess that would be like a good cheat. If
Yeah. Well, and you can do it with your
some
paint
kind of
job,
thing like that,
which
right?
that video's coming too, how to paint the terrain and the models.
Yeah.
It's just, right, we got to take it one step at a time, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and then just one more little tidbit. This thing that says demeanor on the card next to the specialism apparently doesn't really mean anything.
yeah, no in-game
Other
effect.
than right, it's
Right.
just it's the story.
Right, that's
narrative
just the-
side of it,
mhm.
of the adding color
Right.
to the game. But,
Yeah, and then the bottom left too, you'll see experience. That's again for campaign play. Convalescence and new recruit are also for campaign play.
Okay.
So you don't really need those again unless you're playing
Yeah,
a
it
campaign.
has a mark you can do for flesh wounds, which technically would be helpful, except for if you do actually mark up the cards.
Yeah, then you mess up your cards.
Then you gotta
So,
get new cards, which
yeah.
you know you could do, but
Right. So that's pretty much it, guys. Specialists and tactics and command points.
they're there to enhance your
Yes.
game. So just get more familiar with your phases within each round. Go through your basic tactics, like take them a few at a time, because especially while you're learning, still the phases and getting more comfortable, it takes a little bit more like, okay, wait, so what is it, oh, it has to be, it's a guy in this situation, as long as there's somebody else within 3 inches of him and he's not shaken, he can do this thing. So you kind of have to like mentally decipher it. Usually there's a good storied narrative way of like remembering it and figuring it out, like, oh, that's the guy that's like got the little tool to help tell the other guys what's going on, or whatever.
Exactly.
There's kind of usually a narrative connection with how to remember what the tactic is that you have available to you. So
and and then as you play, you're gonna learn more about what makes good play, so to speak. What sort of combos you can pull off with your specialists, with your tactics, with your normal dudes. What sort of different things you can do that makes your army unique to the next person's army. So there you go. Cool. So that's it, guys. Let us know what you think in the comment. Give us a like or a subscribe.
Comment.
We're
still building this whole thing up, trying to refine it. So
let us know. Let us know what you like or don't like
while we're figuring it all out.
And then stay tuned. Stay tuned this Friday for a new Gameplay Friday, and next week for new Warhammer Wednesdays. Okay, thanks. Bye.
This guy has in you.
Well, if you do, this
true.
card
Anyway,
somehow I only grabbed.
So,
did it just get darker in here?
I don't think so.
I feel like a light just went out.
I don't think
it
so.
did.
Oh no!
It did. This light went out.
We got new lighting.
No, we didn't charge the battery.
Right. Oh no! All right. Well, we tried to have.
We're trying.
We're getting there.
Okay.
Anyway.